Hey, we've got a problem here.
So, what's the plan?
What's your plan?
What are your plans?
What's the plan?
What's the plan?
What's your plan?
What's your plan of action?
Plan.
What's the plan?
So, what is the plan?
Wait, I have a plan.
I have a plan.
I have a plan.
That's the plan.
I have a plan here.
This plan's gonna work. Master Plan, Phase 1, Side A.
I love everything about your plan.
भाई इससे कहते हैं planning.
What's it say?
Well, it says, I love it when a plan comes together.
Welcome everybody, welcome Ian. It's our final instalment for this year for our live broadcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the end of the beginning, I think.
Exactly, yes, because we'll be back again in February, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Back again in February for an exciting 2019.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've got an exciting lineup for today as well.
Absolutely.
But before I hand it over to you, I'm going to start with the acknowledgement to country.
Oh, that would be great, Holly.
Yeah. So we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the country, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the first innovators and carers of this land. We especially would like to recognise the elders of tomorrow, as they are the future of this earth. And so let us all join together to respect and acknowledge all First Nations so that we may walk forward together. And so, Ian, I understand that you've just come back from Mauritius.
Absolutely. Myself and about 50 students and teachers from all around Australia met with another 50 students and teachers from Mauritius for the first International Young Persons Plan for the Planet conference. So everybody, I think, is still a little bit bleary-eyed because it was a pretty full-on conference. Everybody worked really hard, but I think they had a lot of fun as well. So yeah, it was just a great success, and the Mauritian teams were just terrific. And I think the most touching point was seeing all of the Mauritian students and all of the Australian students sitting down and building the first international SDG plan.
No, that's amazing. And I look forward to hearing about it in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in the meantime, you give us a rundown then, are you?
Let's talk about what we're going to do today.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about the conference, give you a few of the highlights of what we're doing. We had a great welcome from Professor Brian Schmidt, who's the Vice-Chancellor of ANU. And we're going to just let you know what Brian said, because I thought it was a really powerful message about what the students are doing. We then have an interview with Professor Graham Durant, and we actually had this for the conference, and it in fact really puts together what the conference was about, which is leveraging the STEM skills and global competency skills that students are learning in this program to deliver the SDGs. And it's quite interesting because in interviewing Professor Durant, he talks about his career and how that's developed, obviously, from STEM skills and from science and all of those skills. But I guess the most important part of Graham's career is he has now taken on the, the challenge of the SDGs. And Questacon, as we know, and Professor Durant have been great supporters of this program, which aims to leverage STEM skills and global competencies
Absolutely.
to deliver the SDGs. So we've got the interview with Professor Durant. We're going to talk a little bit about then finalising the Australian state and regional plans, but also the international plan, because one of the results of the actual program was in fact the development of the first international young person's plan for the planet.
Great.
And that was a result of the Australian students and the Mauritian students actually sitting down together and combining their plans and then looking at what that would look like on an international scale. So that'll be our next step, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, we're going to talk about looking forward to 2019. So there are some pretty exciting things that were announced actually at the conference that I didn't know about. So that's pretty exciting for 2019 and beyond.
Yeah.
So what's happening and happened this year with all of the Mauritian students taking on the program in such a competent, enthusiastic and capable way, working with the Australian students has meant that has become a model for other countries. So we had at least a couple of other countries represented at the conference, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. So yeah, we've got a pretty exciting program coming up today as well.
Great. Well, let's get to it.
Yeah, let's do that. Now, what I wanted to do is start off with a, let me see, the words that Brian Schmidt actually said to the conference, because this is really important in understanding what the whole program is about. And I thought it's worthwhile just kick-starting today with really looking at the conference, but also more importantly, the whole focus of the program. And I'm going to talk a little bit about also some of the key points that came out of the conference. But Brian really highlighted it when he said encouraging young people to contribute to a future plan for the planet is essential. Now we've got to remember that Brian is a Nobel laureate for discovering the universe is expanding. So Brian's a pretty capable guy, and when I first sat down with Brian, we talked about the program, he understood it immediately and he absolutely embraced it. And what he said is the program actually embraces youth, young people, as the designers and implementers of our sustainable future Earth, which is really what we're aiming to do. So hand over the power and the capabilities to our young people. And the Australian National University is pleased, along with Questacon, along with Future Earth Australia, along with all of our stakeholders, Frank Fenner Foundation, Mauritius Commercial Bank. We have a large group of stakeholders who are now behind the program. United Nations Information Centre, the United Nations Association of Australia. So we've got many groups who are actually supporting you. And I was explaining at the conference that any great football team or any great sportsman always gets up and says up front, it's not just about me or about our team, it's actually all of the teams, all of the members of our support team who make this a possibility. So Brian said the Australian National University and all of our stakeholders are pleased to be key stakeholders in this program and acknowledge the important role that young people have to play in national and international implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I just thought that really set the scene for the whole conference, for the whole program, and also for how we're going to move forward into 2019. So I just wanted to start with Brian's comments. And we actually have, I've just mentioned at this point, the whole of the conference videoed. So the Curtin Mauritius team, the university in Mauritius, got their media students to actually video the entire conference, so that'll be loaded up onto the website, not in one big thing, it'll be loaded up in bite-sized pieces, so you'll be able to see all of the presentations by the students, by the presenters, and by some of the senior politicians who actually attended the conference, including the President of Mauritius.
I was just going to say something on that one. So that's pretty exciting that you managed to get him out there.
Well, it's really interesting because the High Commission of Australia sponsored a special reception for all of the students and teachers from Mauritius and Australia. And we'd sort of heard rumours that the President might be attending, and we turned up and he was there. And he gave a very passionate speech about the importance of young people being engaged in designing their future.
Yeah, and because he was a teacher, wasn't he?
Well, that was the other really interesting thing. I was thanking the High Commissioner, Jenny Dee, for actually arranging for him to come along, and she said he was really excited because he used to be a teacher and he understood how important this learning is for young people.
That's fantastic.
So do you want to know a bit more about some of the...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought you might. So it'll all be on video, but I thought I might just highlight one or two particular slides that actually were showed at the conference. The first one is the cycles of technology. We'll just put that one up now. And that basically talks about what we're doing with the program. So this talks about the phases of innovation and technology development. But it's quite an interesting slide because you can actually go back a few steps to the agricultural revolution and see how technology has taken us forward. But the really interesting thing about this slide is underlying every one of these development is what's called a cognitive revolution, or a thinking, an understanding phase that actually underpins these technology developments. So the technology didn't drive the next step, it was actually the thinking behind it. And I'll give you an example right back to the agricultural revolution. So I used to think that this is all about let me see, you know, somebody working out that you could plant seeds and you didn't have to go and collect them, etc. But actually what drove that next civilization step was not just that clever little piece of technology, but it was a whole, let me see, thinking process and cognitive construct or cognitive revolution that sat behind that. Because if you think about it, you know, somebody works out that they're going to plant a field here, and somebody works out they're going to plant a field here, and somebody works out they're going to plant a field here, and all of a sudden we've got a lot of fields planted. But the tricky part about that is who's going to know which field is which and whose is whose. And then somebody's got to build a road to help them collect all that grain and take it down to the market that's down here. And that gets a bit complicated because who's going to pay for that road to get built? So what happened in parallel with this seed planting is a whole way of thinking about how do we record who actually owns which field, who's going to pay the taxes to actually pay for that road. Now, you can imagine this starts to get a little bit more complex, and nobody had computers and Excel spreadsheets. In fact, they didn't have anything. But it was all too hard to remember, and you know, everybody had to agree what was what. So that, in fact, was where the first language came from.
Okay.
So the first language was in not about love, not about, you know, stories and history. It was actually accountancy.
That's actually really interesting.
It is really interesting, and I didn't know this till I was reading about it quite recently. But yeah, the first language was actually about recording who actually owned which plot, and how much taxes they were going to pay, and how much grain they'd actually put into the central coffer. So the old clay tablets actually had Holly owns field such and such, and she paid so much in. So you can see that it was more than just planting seeds. It was all about thinking and then developing a writing technology that actually could support the society growing bigger and bigger. Because once you had that, you could actually then start to have larger and larger groups of fields. But if you didn't have that, it had to stay small because you could never work out who, beyond a certain point, had what. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's all sort of about evolving, adapting, prioritising and applying in some ways.
Look, it really is. And how's that relevant to now? Well, if we then go from the agricultural revolution to the first industrial revolution, again, it was working out new ways of thinking that actually supported the technology, and often the technology would support. Now, why is that relevant to now? The reason is we're now starting to move into this last phase, and perhaps the most important phase of our whole civilization's development. And why is it important? It's important because we only have one planet.
Yeah.
So we can keep developing, but we always have to develop within that framework of one planet, unless, of course, we sort out how to get to Mars and get back there and develop that, which we're working on. But at the moment, there's one planet, and we need to work out how to live on this planet in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
And the way we're going at the moment is the old way of doing things, which is you grow and you grow and you grow and you grow. Well, the problem is if the planet's that big and we grow that big, then we've got a problem. Well, we're already seeing some of those issues, and that's about climate change, that's about inequalities, that's about a whole lot of things. So the interesting thing about what we're learning with the Young Person's Plan for the Planet and what all of the students are actually putting into practice is a new way of thinking.
Yeah. I mean, we've actually seen quite a lot of great activism from particularly young people this past week on the matter of climate change.
So, tell me about it. I was
away. Oh, no, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, no, well, so this week we had school students, I guess, marching and protesting, and I guess trying to lobby government to actually take climate change seriously. And so it was a bit of a, I think we had Scott Morrison trying to encourage students to stay in school, and then the school students saying, well, no, if you're not going to...
We'd like to encourage you to do something about climate change.
Yeah, what's the point of learning about the future if there is no future, I think one of the students said. So
that's pretty impressive, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That's really pretty impressive, and that's really what the program's about, is in fact giving students the skills to be able to design and lobby for. So that's empowering.
Yeah.
So I actually did see that article in the paper when I was driving back, and the thing that really got me excited is the person who organised that was actually from a school that I went to.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, yeah. So it was,
awesome.
It was really exciting. So to think, you know, we were actually a little bit active when I was there, but I think, you know, this has taken it and we're seeing it all over the world. We're seeing in America young people saying, look, I'm going to become part of the political scene. We're seeing it with some of our alumni. We saw Harry, who presented at Parliament last year. He couldn't come to the conference because he was over in Poland at COP, and the COP being the, the whole assembly of countries looking at how to address climate change going forward. So it's pretty exciting to see the, I guess, growth in that sense of ownership of the future and empowerment to do something about it. And you're exactly right. I was really excited when I saw, and I don't see them as protests, I see them as part of this next revolution, this next movement into a way of thinking that says we have to look after our future and we have to look after our planet because there's only...
That's
So
very true.
I'm going to talk quickly about the sort of skills that it's going to take, which is what we discussed at the conference, to actually embrace that future and make it sustainable. So let's just look at our next slide. Now, everybody's going to recognise these skills. This is in fact what the whole Young Person's Plan for the Planet program is based on. And these are the program tools that you're learning. So while I'm at ANU, I'm actually looking at what the tools are, what the thinking processes are that are going to help us take the next step forward. And we're building all of those, and they are in fact already built into the program. So let me just talk through the 6 key skills that all of the students are learning and how that's going to help us move forward to achieve a sustainable planet. The first one is the Sustainable Development Goals. So everybody knows about these now because everybody's working on them and developing their plans. Yeah. Why are they important? The reason they're important is they are the agreed blueprint or recipe or roadmap, however you want to describe it, to a sustainable future. So 193 countries, which is all the countries on the planet, have signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals. And so by working out how to implement those in a coordinated way and understanding them, all of the students are learning about the roadmap to a sustainable future. Now, the interesting thing is, if students ask other people about the SDGs, probably not everybody will be familiar with them.
Yeah.
So that becomes interesting. There's a roadmap for sustainability, which is the most critical thing that we've ever worked on in our civilization, and not everybody knows about it. So one of the things that Her Excellency Jenny Dee, the High Commissioner in Australia, talked about is students actually being ambassadors.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well as
Great.
mentors, and the thing that Professor David Gibson talked about was students being leaders. And he did a session on leadership, and he said, who's the most important leader that you know best? And guess what the answer was?
Yourself.
Yourself. Exactly,
good we got that one
exactly.
right.
He pointed to every student in the room and he said, you are the leaders of the future. So developing these skills helps you to be a leader in this next wave of development. Now the second skill that we are learning in this is all about science, technology, engineering and maths, STEM skills. Why is that important? Because it's critical that we all, have a sense of knowledge-based decision-making. So the whole of the science and the technology and engineering, maths are all about critical thinking in making decisions about how we move forward. Yeah. So there's always lots of opinions around. Everybody's got an opinion. But what everybody's learning in this is how to look at the evidence, how to look at the data, and how to use that to actually build a plan, but then also start to turn those plans into action. But based on evidence, based on good data, not just based on opinion. So that's why STEM is so important. Now the third skill that all of the students are learning is research and evaluation. How to then go and research the areas they're looking at. And that's all about, diving in, doing the research, jumping onto the web, seeing what everybody else is doing, seeing what everybody else is recommending. And one of the challenges is and I know a lot of students have explained this to me, they've said, look, it was pretty difficult in the end when we had to actually look at the SDGs and come up with solutions. And I said, well, that's reasonable because these are the toughest challenges we've got on the planet. You don't, You know, don't feel like that's going to be easy. Everybody else is still working out how to solve those things as well. So one of the skills that is being, let me see, developed in this is your ability to go in and research what is already happening under these goals, what do they represent, and then as we start to move into working with different countries, how do different countries and different students and different cultures actually look at the same problems. And what we found delightful in Mauritius was the way that students were able to see that the same problem could be looked at from a whole variety of different ways.
Yeah, I can imagine there'd be a bigger prioritization element to this when you're sifting through so much information.
Look, absolutely, and that's one of the things that we've had come back to us, that the ability to go, if we look over on the right-hand side of our slide, from looking at the SDGs right through that process of prioritisation, and then actually come up with a plan with 4 priorities under each SDG, all built into an overall plan. That was one of the exciting parts for the students and empowering parts, because they'd gone from this looks really hard to actually producing a plan that everybody could be very proud of and should be very proud of. The Mauritian students, the Australian students, and now this combined international plan.
Yeah.
So research and evaluation, really important. Challenge-based learning, one of the questions that came back early on from a lot of the students is, why did you just throw us in the deep end? why didn't you sort of give us a few more guidelines? Well, the reason is because the best way to learn is to take on the challenge. So challenge-based learning is to say, go for it. And even though there was a little bit of working it out in the beginning, we found different schools, different students started to set up structures, train other schools, train other students, as they started to work it out. So half of this is actually realising that even though challenges might look really big in the beginning, you can actually take them on, break them down into manageable bits, prioritise them, work out a game plan and implement it. That's what challenge-based learning is. And that was a bit of the experiment we were testing over the last 2 years, whether students could do that.
Of course.
Blitzed it.
No worries. It's very much learn by doing.
It is learn by doing.
Which is a good way to learn.
It's the only way to learn, isn't it?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Rather than...
Do you think, in your experience, learning by doing is the way to...
Oh, of course. I mean, if you're spoon-fed information all the time, I think you end up going into this revolving cycle of just memorising for the sake of it, but not actually understanding what you're doing.
Yeah, and when you get out into the workforce and whatever you do as you move forward, you've got to be able to take a lot of stuff in and process it, not just, put out stuff that you've learnt right.
Yeah.
Great, the next skill is strategic planning. Now, this is a really interesting one because often people who understand the SDGs don't have good strategic planning skills because they've never had to do that before. And often it's the same way in reverse, that people who've got great strategic planning skills have never had to apply it to the SDGs. So what we've done here is pull it all together, which then gives you as a group of students a very unique skill set. So its ability to strategically plan on a countrywide basis, a regional basis, and now on an international basis. And strategic planning is always the same. It's exactly what you've been doing. So whatever career you walk into, the skills you have just in strategic planning will take you forward very quickly. And that was told to me by the head of Mauritius Commercial Bank when he said, this is amazing. Students have done this, they've already learned how to do this. So that's really exciting, but combining that with sustainable development goals, STEM skills, research, evaluation, challenge-based learning is in fact what's unique. And these are the skills that are going to take everybody, the whole planet, into that next stage of thinking and doing in terms of building a sustainable planet. And the last part actually comes out of that, which is ability to then work with other cultures, understand other cultures as the way of thinking, and that's really global citizenship. And that's what UNESCO is promoting at the moment. So that's part of the reason we had the international conference. We've set up the international links with Cisco, which means different countries can now talk to each other, different students, different schools, and that will also facilitate the mentoring as we move forward next year.
Yeah, and I mean, cross-cultural collaboration is probably one of the most important elements at the moment.
Of course, and you know, whatever career you're in. So
Yeah.
my last job, I spent most of the day on conference calls with other countries, with other experts. So it's multidisciplinary learning, which is what you're learning in doing all of the SDGs. So looking at different areas and working out how they interconnect, but also multicultural learning. So you're learning how to work that across the culture. So that set of skills that you're learning here through the program will equip all of the students going forward, not only in their careers, but also they'll be the steps that we all need to take to actually develop the sustainable planet that we all want.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
they were the key points of the conference.
Yep.
What I want to do now is I was thinking it would be good to talk to somebody who's actually taken all of this and put it into practice. So we've arranged for Professor Graham Durant, who's the head of Questacon, to tell us a little bit about his career. Now, we did this as part of our preparation and welcome for all of the students to the conference, but I thought it would be great for all of the students across the whole program to actually see that interview, because it gives everybody a great sense of, okay, well, this is great in theory, but what does that look like in terms of a career? And as I said, Professor Durant has taken his science and all of these skills and actually turned that into a career in running Questacon, but now taking Questacon with his team to that next step of embracing the Sustainable Development Goals. So why don't we hear that interview with Professor Durant.
Sounds good. Let's get to it.
Graham, give a welcome to all of the students at the Mauritius Conference on behalf of Questacon and the team here.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Yeah, it's great to be here, and it's great to be able to welcome the students to the International Conference in Mauritius. And I'm delighted that the project has got this far, and with the help of our friends at the Rajiv Gandhi Science Centre and here at Questacon and the ANU and the many other partners that are involved, we've now got to a place where students are getting together and actually starting to make things happen. So going from the plan to the project, which is a really exciting part of what we're doing.
So while we've got you here, Graham, I thought some of the students don't know your background as Director of Questacon, and what we're really encouraging all of our students to be thinking about is their future careers. So sustainability, and I notice you've got your UN SDG badge on, sustainability really is the future of the planet. So there's going to be some exciting careers. And my experience has been that the STEM skills, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics are going to be key skills in actually enabling sustainability. How did you get into your career? I'm fascinated.
Okay, well, I left school 49 years ago, believe it or not. And I left school a little bit early, went to work for a while in an industrial research laboratory, but then went to university to study geology and geography. And geology was my passion because it got me out of doors, and I love being out of doors. And so I did a first degree, and I did well enough to go on to do a PhD. And then at that point you start looking around for jobs, and I was applying for jobs that could have taken me into many different countries doing many different things. I could have been mapping sands and gravels or looking for places to store radioactive nuclear waste. I ended up getting a one-year research assistantship in a university museum in Scotland, and realised I loved communicating, and the museum gave me an opportunity to not only gain knowledge, but to share it with others. And that passion for acquiring knowledge and sharing it has really driven me down this path that ultimately led me to Questacon. So 25 years in a university in Scotland, working in a museum environment, running science festivals and science communication activities. And then almost out of the blue, I got the opportunity to come to Australia and been here for 15 years now, and it's been fantastic.
It's really interesting, isn't it? So all of that science has led you to a position of now director of Questacon, but you're also involved in the International Science Centres group, and there's quite a few science centres around the world.
Yeah, when I left school, 1969, it was the same year that the Exploratorium and the Ontario Science Centre opened. And these were the first two of the really influential hands-on science centres. And there were very few on the planet at that time. But since 1969, there's been spectacular growth. So going from a very small number of centres now to about 3,000 in not quite every country yet, but every country is aspiring to build science centres or have the activities from science centres. And it's because of this increasing recognition of the importance of science, technology, engineering, maths in our lives. And you can study those disciplines and you can end up in a whole variety of different careers because it just can take you so far, and it's taken me around the world literally. And I've had as a geology student and lecturer in a university, I've had the privilege of visiting many places on the planet. And of course that gives you this perspective of the globe, of the planet, of the places, the people, the problems, the challenges and the opportunities. And so, bringing all that together, when I read your book, I realized that there was an opportunity in that for a program to engage young people, because science centers around the world are trying to engage teenagers, and we do very well with younger children and families. But going from that to a bit more depth, a bit more content for a teenage audience is a challenge. Teenagers have other priorities, pressures, opportunities. But we found that through projects like the one that we're working on at the moment, we're able to get that deeper engagement with science. And a lot of the young people I meet are people who want to solve problems. They're not content just to sit there and feel sorry for themselves. They want to get out there and they want to make a difference. It's their future. The future of the planet is their future. And it's really important that they have a voice, that they find that voice, that they build their networks, they find like-minded people, and they can make a difference. And the power of one becomes the power of many. And I think lots of ones, of individuals working together can really make a difference. And that's what excites me about the potential for this project. We're starting to realize that potential, going from an idea over a cup of coffee to a second year of a project that's now engaging 700 people. It's becoming increasingly international. I think is firstly a credit to you and your team, but also a credit to the students and teachers who are getting behind it. And through the Science Centre community, we can connect this project to many communities around the world. And I think there's a great opportunity to be really quite a powerful force for good in the world. And I like it because it's actually a very simple project. And it's the simplicity that actually means that it can work. There are plenty of complicated things in the world, but actually a fairly simple project where you analyze some of the key challenges, issues, things that need to be done in your region, your city, your country, prioritizing them and then coming up with solutions. It's basic life skill, and it works so well.
Well, look, we'd like to again thank you, Graham, for joining us at the conference virtually. That's the wonders of our technology now. And thank you for welcoming all of the students to the conference and giving us a little bit of insight into both your background and the background to the program, and also that sense of how we can move forward.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the outputs from the conference, and I just know they're going to be good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that and sharing it with others. So thank you. Have a great conference.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
I'm sure that was really quite encouraging for the students to hear from someone like Graham.
Look, absolutely, and we had a lot of speakers at the conference, both virtually and actually. But I think the point that I loved about that talk with Graham is that sense of the vision going forward. So I just wanted to finish off today talking about how we're going to move forward, because we're pretty much wrapping up 2018. It's time to go on holidays and have a good break. I know the Mauritian students are already there. They came in specially from their holidays to the conference last week. Australian students are about to go on holidays. So let's just talk a little bit about the next steps in actually taking this all forward, because they're pretty exciting. So if we thought it was a great year this year, it's getting even better in 2019. And one of the questions I often get asked is, do I have to stop doing the program now that I've done the first year? Well, no, you don't. You get your alumni badge, and that means that you are now qualified as an alumni in the Young Person's Plan for the Planet. We've got a couple of students who've now got two. They've got their 2017 and their 2018, and all students have been part of the program. You'll either have those now, or they'll be on their way to you. So you'll get those. You'll get your certificates of accreditation, but now you'll be able to get involved in a whole lot of parts of the program moving forward. The special projects, so we have a relationship now with Curtin University, and they have an entire application to actually build special projects on. So special projects that come out of your plan, you can get involved in. You can get involved in mentoring of new schools, and I'll just talk in a sec about some of the new countries that we've got coming on, which are pretty exciting. So you can get involved in mentoring, leadership, as we've seen. Harry is over at COP in Poland at the moment, and we're already seeing a lot of our students already starting to take leadership roles in this area. So there's a lot you can be involved in moving forward. I was talking to one of our students, Ron, who's about to go to university next year, and we're starting to set up the universities program so students can continue to move through the program as they go into university. So there's a lot going forward. So first of all, what are our next steps? If I just look through some of these slides now, what we've got is finishing off the international plan and your regional plans. So to do this, there's a few simple components that you'll need, as well as your 17 SDGs. Next steps, we'll write that one for you. The preface, which was the slide before, is you can go out and get whoever you want in your community or internationally to actually help write up your preface. So we had the privilege of having Brian Schmidt, Graham Durant, and a number of our key professors at University of New South Wales write the introduction. But as students, you are able to actually get whoever you want. Next page is, in fact, the list of all the students and teachers involved in the program. Now, this is going to be a pretty busy page, because for our international program, in fact, we might need 2 pages, Holly, we're going to have everybody's names last year and this year who've been involved in the program. So we're going to have a bit of a logistics challenge, but we're going to have the 700 names of all of the students and teachers who've actually been involved in the development of the first international plan. Now, what we'd like the students to do is also look at the vision, the international vision, or the regional vision. Now, you can either adapt this vision or you can come up with another vision, but it's important with any plan to have an overall vision, and this gives you a sense of what that vision can look like. And then the next area is the priorities. It's important to set up within your 17 goals the key priorities. So most of the teams have already done their, their 17 plans. Now it's just a simple matter of putting all of these front ends in, and then we'll be looking to then publish in the same way we publish the Australian Plan for the Planet, the Young Mauritians Plan for the Planet, to publish all of the regional plans, present those in the regional parliaments, and also look to present the international plan through at an international level through the United Nations. So that's the next step, and then there's a few key things that will, let me see, we need to do just to finish off. So this is your 17 plans. Just make sure they're in there, and then also your the last slide, which will actually be the next steps. We'll write that for you so you can insert that into the plan. And then we also always finish with the quote by Ban Ki-moon, which is there's no plan B because we don't have a planet B. And that's the most important message as leaders, as mentors, that we can be conveying. And I noticed Dr. David Attenborough speaking at the climate change, and this is what he reiterated.
Yeah,
this is the most important thing to keep in mind. This is why we're doing this. But the reverse of this is sort of the negative side. The upside is building a sustainable future. And when we looked at the building that we had the last day of the conference in the Mauritius Commercial Bank, which looks like an eye. We'll get some pictures out for everybody so they can see that. It's a completely sustainable building. It doesn't generate its own air, but it purifies the air. It collects water. All the water in the building is collected and then purified. All of the energy is supplied on site, and they have so much energy supplied on site, they actually ship it out to the community for free.
That's fantastic.
So it's quite an amazing building.
Yeah.
But what it actually epitomises, and I said this on the last day, is it epitomises that exciting future of a sustainable planet. It's exciting technology. It's exciting engineering. It's exciting mathematical concepts, and it's exciting technology. So, and exciting science. So this is what next year looks like. It looks like an expansion out to a whole lot of places based on the great work of the Australian and the Mauritian students who demonstrated this could be done. So we had the Science Centre from Singapore actually at the conference. We had the announcement by the Australian High Commission that DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, is supporting the program to actually expand into all ASEAN countries.
Oh, wow.
We've had interest from all of the Pacific Island countries, from Europe, from the Americas. So next year gets even more exciting as we take this out and all of the existing students become mentors and leaders. This is what it looks like in Australia and Mauritius. We'll engage more students actually in country and more schools, and we want to focus on the local government areas. So next year the planning will be for your local government area, and the great thing about that, Holly, is all of the students will be able to work very closely with their local council to actually implement their plans. So final next steps, we'll be finalising those regional plans. We'll be finalising the first international plan, and the most important thing for the students.
Have a great holiday, and we'll see you next year.
In 2019. It'll be bigger than 1999. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks for all of your help this year. You've absolutely been amazing, far exceeded everybody's expectations, and demonstrated absolutely that the best decision we ever made was to hand the baton of the future to you, the young people, to actually turn our planet into a sustainable one. So thank you, Holly, for all of your help this year.
Oh, thank you, Ian, as well.
Thank you, Aidan, Dave, Alex.
The team at Questacon.
The team at Questacon, Amy, Graham, Bobby. It's been great working with you, and it's going to be even more exciting next year. So thanks very much, and look forward to a great holiday and a great and exciting 2019. Thanks a lot.